Welcome to PTI BetterGradesFast.com multimedia tutorials. This language arts session will be on prefixes and suffixes. First, we will look at what is a prefix. A prefix is a short attachment to the beginning of any word to give it a different meaning. Usually, in English, prefixes give words opposite meanings. Let me show you some examples. You have the main word possible. If you add the prefix I-am, you will change the meaning of the word. We now have an opposite word due to the addition of a prefix. You have changed possible to impossible, which means not possible. One thing that you have to ensure that you remember is that when you add prefixes, you do not change the part of speech of your word. This means that if you begin with an adjective and then you add a prefix, you still have an adjective. Possible is an adjective describing a noun. Impossible is still an adjective that can describe a noun. Some examples of common prefixes in English are non, N-O-N, im, I-M, re, R-E, in, I-N, on, U-N. Remember, adding these do not change the part of speech of your word. Let me show you a few more examples before we move on to suffixes. A simple word as do. Do is a verb. Adding the prefix re makes the word redo, meaning do again. Redo is still a verb. Adding the prefix un changes the word to undo, which means to reverse something that was already done, but they are all still verbs. Prefixes do not change parts of speech. Think of some words that you know, perhaps adjectives or verbs also, and add prefixes to them. See if they would change in parts of speech. They will not. Now let's go on to suffixes. Suffixes are the opposite to prefixes. Suffixes are the addition to words at the end of the word given in order to change the meaning. Unlike prefixes, with suffixes, you always change your part of speech. Let me show you an example. Encourage is a verb. If we were to make it into a noun, we would have to add the suffix in, M-E-N-T, meant, making encouragement. Now with this suffix, we have changed a verb to an abstract noun. Remember, when we added the prefixes, we still kept the verb. However, with suffixes, your part of speech always changes. Once a verb, now with the suffix meant, it's a noun. Let me show you some more examples. Kind, an adjective, becomes kindly by adding ly suffix, therefore making it an adverb. Remember, most suffixes that are ly would definitely show you that that particular word is an adverb. But again, observe, with the addition of a suffix, you no longer have an adjective. You now have an adverb. So keep those changes in mind when adding suffixes. Some other very commonly used suffixes in English are meant, M-E-N-T, shun, T-I-O-N, or S-I-O-N, ly, L-Y, and there are many others that you can also think of. Sometimes you may have to change the last letter of the word given to be able to add an appropriate suffix. Let me show you one example of those. Beauty, which is a noun, an abstract noun, by adding fy becomes beautify, which is a verb to make something beautiful. But as you can see, the y has to become I before you can add the suffix. There are few changes like this to consider when adding suffixes. They usually happen if the original word given ends in an E or with a Y. So, when you have words ending in E or Y and you have to add suffixes, remember that there are usually some type of spelling change. You can consult your dictionary to ensure that these are correct, but after using them for some time, you will be able to confidently add your own prefixes or suffixes. Just to recap, a prefix is the addition to a word at the beginning of it. Prefixes usually give the opposite in meaning when added. They do not change the part of speech of the original word. So, if your original word was a verb, adding a prefix does not change the fact that it is still a verb. Suffixes, on the other hand, are added at the end of words given. Sometimes, a spelling change is required if the word ends in Y or E. Suffixes change the part of speech of your word given every time. Meaning, if you were given a noun, adding a specific suffix can make it into an adjective or a verb. It just depends on the suffix that you add. Remember these differences when comparing prefixes and suffixes. There can be words with both a prefix and a suffix at the same time. In these cases, try to recognize the prefix, underline it, recognize the suffix, underline it, and you will be left with your root word. This is how you analyze words to determine prefixes and suffixes. There are specific and common prefixes and suffixes in English, so it's easy to identify them with practice. So keep working on them and you will be able to understand prefixes and suffixes. Thank you for choosing PTI BetterGradesFast.com.